Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining this month's GRIDtalk. Thank you for your time. This session, we are going to cover the RIBA Playbook. We've built a lot of RIBA-based playbooks over our time, so we just wanted to take you through our next kind of industry research project that we're working on this year. For those that are new to GRIDtalk, we run GRIDtalk monthly. It's a monthly webinar. We might do a few podcasts this year as well, but really it's just about how we share best practice and help develop the project management profession. We recently became a corporate member for the APM as well. But yeah, monthly session, that's really just giving back what we've learned about playbooks and how organizations help develop their project delivery capability. For next month's, just there, and I think Tom will put the link up. We did a lot of focus last year about the kind of process to playbook journey that a lot of clients have gone through, and we put that into a white paper, and that's ready for next month. So we're just going to do GRIDtalk focused on that white paper and a bit more of the detail and the kind of human psychology. I'll go into a little bit of it in the next couple of slides, but just more kind of thorough resource that kind of helps you understand the shift from our traditional approach that we take in terms of how process, knowledge, and delivery are connected. Okay. For those that are completely new to Method Grid, I'll just explain the kind of problem, make this a bit bigger so you can see it. The kind of core problem that we're trying to help organizations solve is how you reduce the cost of poor quality that comes from inconsistent ways of working. I won't go through all of the kind of pain symptoms that we kind of help clients solve, but probably one is they recognize the way they do things is inconsistent. Two, it's very difficult for teams to find the information they need when they need it, and they're constantly asking the same questions. They don't know who to speak to, and that kind of leads to kind of 6 and 7 on the top there, which is that feeling that you're constantly reinventing the wheel and not the kind of innovating ways of working. It's just people are producing, recreating work because they didn't even know it existed. Or you just get people coming in and saying, well, I can't find the way of working, so I'm just going to do it my way. And that leads to 7, which a lot of us, I think there's not many people I've kind of spoken to that don't have this problem. What it does for the employees, it makes it very difficult for them to discover their way of working and get up to speed, and it takes a long time for them to be onboarded. In terms of the way that we see the world and the problem, one is fundamental that we have to give people clarity on what the method is and the process that we want them to follow. That can be, some clients will say, look, we've got a few slides. Others will be, we've got a full-blown Goliath SharePoint site, but the kind of phrase recently introduced by one of our clients was, look, it's just digital dust. No one views it, no one uses it, and I don't think it adds any value to teams in helping them access the information. So kind of compliance is always a universal challenge of what we're trying to help people be to apply consistently ways of working. In terms of people capability, it's quite simple. If we want people to follow our ways of working, we've got to kind of address the fear index. We've got to give them the confidence for them to give it a go. And that's not saying that, yes, you need to train everything, but training is a key part in that. But it can be as simple as, look, here's some best practice templates, here's an example, and here's the person to speak to if you need further support and guidance. It's just making sure that you're building that support network around them for them to feel confident in executing your way of working. And then 4 is just the residual risk factor. It always exists, and you'll always have kind of standards, audit, and assurance involved in capital project delivery or project delivery in general. I think the frustrations you need to manage are, it's very frustrating for teams when they go through gates and it's kind of, you haven't got evidence, where's X, where's Y? Well, you never told me I needed it. Or it's the flip side is when you do get audited and assured, you're kind of dragged down by people trying to find, where is this evidence, where is this evidence? And when we looked at it, we just don't think really the traditional technology thinking is like we need this type of system and that type of system. We were like, actually, can we think of a new way of connecting knowledge, process, and delivery as an integrated solution for teams? Yeah, if you're kind of nodding and going, yeah, that's kind of us. I've just kind of highlighted probably the kind of key points that I think everyone I've spoken to. Some ways they're always kind of unique, but there is a common trend, which I'd say everyone suffers with those kind of core ones I've highlighted in red there. But compliance to ways of working is the core challenge that everyone has. I'll come on to why in a second. How we solve that problem with Method Grid, what we recognized, sort of point one, is organizations need a kind of no-code platform to help them codify ways of working for consultants. So look, how can we merge knowledge and project management as a single capability, but can we then build our own playbooks that shape our way of working and define it, and then teams can deliver it? Point two is just keeping it very simple. It's a grid-based structure. I'll give you an example of the RIBA playbook later, but also recognize that we're not a single system that will be involved in. There will be, oh, can we connect it to SharePoint, OneDrive? Can we connect it to CDEs? Can we link to other systems? Can we help people just navigate what is quite a complex environment of different systems, different processes, and different ways of working? Three is probably the kind of most interesting part about the platform. Very early on in our kind of development journey, feedback from clients was, look, we really like playbooks, very simple for staff to follow. What we want to be able to do though is we have this playbook and this is how it should happen, but when reality bites, things don't always play out that way, and we need to kind of tailor and adjust it and right size it. Client doesn't want to do it that way, they want to move this over here and adjust that. And so can we have the ability to tailor the playbooks for every single project? And so we came up with a very simple concept: is you develop a master playbook and then you tailor, also you clone that playbook for each project, but you give that clone to the project team and you say, look, you've got everything, you've got all the templates, all the knowledge, all the checks and balances that we want to see, but go and tailor and right size that for the project, please, and take ownership of how you think we should best deliver that solution to the client. And point four is when we moved into that delivery environment, we had to switch on reporting and dashboards so that you can extract the MI and reporting from the platform. But more interestingly, because we have knowledge, process, and delivery, what we're looking at is, well, how do we better use that information using machine learning? Like lessons learned is a key one, about pushing recommendations to people at the point of need rather than just the kind of theatrical theatre that happens at the start and end of every project. So that's kind of broad kind of introduction to Method Grid. Yeah, core concept, and I'll use it. What do we mean by playbook? Essentially what we're trying to do for teams is to connect knowledge, process, delivery as an integrated solution so that you can define your way, deliver it, and assure it. So yeah, you'll build a playbook to give you the kind of process and compliance, but the key part is, if we're asking people to do something, the how you do it are side by side. And more recently, with more of the advanced playbooks that we're building for clients, it's the integration of training and e-learning resources. So that if you want to know our kind of how we do risk management, then you can quickly access the learning and training you need to build that confidence up, to improve the level of compliance, but also to ensure that people can give it a go. Okay. The why playbooks came about, and I think it kind of responds to the traditional challenge you're probably always facing. We totally recognize that processes provide clarity to teams. However, we always find that, well, we've written it all down, but what we see is still a massive drift in standards. This is how we've written it down, but how it's done in reality, there's a massive amount of drift. And we're constantly firefighting issues caused by drift. Why so? The kind of point two, really, it's probably a symptom of the traditional approach. What we tend to find with organizations is it's very much, we leave it to the individual. You join a company And you have to kind of build this mental picture in your head of where everything is. And it's kind of, oh, if I want to know about that process, that's in that SharePoint. If I want to know about that process, it's over here and it's in that system. And basically, I have to build this kind of cognitive picture in my head for me to understand where everything is and how you want me to work. The really challenging point with that is we all have different pictures. You know, I've only been in the company 6 months versus someone that's been in the company a year. Their pictures are completely different. They know, and they've acquired through failure and sort of working it all out. But that is a massive impact in terms of collaboration and trying to help people understand ways of working. The kind of conduit connection of both high drift and like cognitive overload, what tends to happen is if people can't find the information quickly, your humans have a natural kind of what's the quickest path of least resistance that I can get something done. And if it's going to take them ages to try and work out and find the resource where it is, I can't find it and I get frustrated with it. Eventually that kind of human nature will kick in and say, do you know what? I think I can remember, I've got a template that I used somewhere, I'm going to use that. Or actually can't find ways of working, I'm just going to do it my way. And it's been able to respond to that challenge that helps you kind of improve compliance. Now, why we built Method Grid was really to address the third point, which is the shelfware trap. And it's not just saying that your kind of resources and all the kind of standards and documentation are sat on the shelf gathering dust. It's when you are in an environment that is suffering from high drift and low compliance to ways of working in the first line of defense, the default response that you take is, oh, well, we need more checks and balances, we need checklist for X, a checklist for Y, and we need more audit and assurance. And what happens is you can overinflate lines 2 and 3, and actually, fortunately, you don't fundamentally address the core issue, which is how can we help teams be more consistent and get it right first time, rather than just defaulting to kind of the defense systems that we need to put in place. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. For those that are kind of completely unaware of Method Grid, we have one core focus in the business, which is how do we help your teams deliver projects and services? And the kind of key philosophy is how we connect knowledge, process, and delivery as an integrated solution. So that gives you kind of a bit of an overview. I'm going to talk about industry research projects, just to give you a bit of background to what they are. The one thing we asked the question probably about 3 years ago was, what can we do with industry to help clients adopt and tailor best practices? I think if you read any kind of best practice framework, like whether it's Prince, MSP, or like PMR, they will always tell you that you need to tailor the project delivery approach and methodology to your organization. But it's kind of like easily said, quite difficult to do. So what we've done recently is to say, well, look, there's a whole set of different partners that we want to work with and do industry projects with. We've done a couple so far, and the kind of list is along the bottom of the kind of key targets that we're working towards. But it's very much what can we do to help you tailor and use best practice in your project delivery approach. So in recent years, the first one we did was Praxis. I think we did that in 2023 with Adrian Dooley. So we built the Praxis framework as a digital playbook and made that available within the platform so teams can use it, tailor it, and right size it. And then obviously the big one that we're kind of known for is PACE. So we worked with Network Rail last year to build PACE Digital, which is PACE read-only platform for the industry, but also it gives clients the ability to use the PACE framework within the platform and including Network Rail regions to be able to tailor and adapt PACE for the execution of projects. So this year was what's our kind of industry research project that we want to pick. And for this year, we've selected RIBA. And the main reason we've selected it is probably fundamentally the majority of playbooks that we've helped clients build is always been around the RIBA stages. And there's kind of two kind of core clients we have. We have the kind of consulting clients that are providing like project, cost management, design management services. And then we have the other flip side, which is the kind of intelligent client, which is, well, okay, that's great, but I actually need to take responsibility for the end-to-end life cycle and orchestration of the project. And really what we thought is, rather than trying to build from scratch every time, is to at least put the foundations in place, that there is a kind of playbook master that we have that would allow clients to fast track the development and tailoring of their approach to basically use RIBA. And sometimes it can be RIBA, or some clients will translate it and use CIOB, but essentially the first one for us is, can we get the RIBA play starter kit built to help clients rapidly sort of tailor and adjust the framework for their use in their projects. We've got a few design guidelines that we're working through, and we'll give you kind of an early view of the prototype as well that we're working on. The reason that I kind of said RIBA would be a really, really good example was it's pretty much oven ready, because if you look at the sort of RIBA plan of work, it's not too far off in terms of the way they've laid it out. It's quite logical, and it's laid out in a kind of playbook structure. So really the kind of challenge for the team is, look, how can we take RIBA plan of work, this huge RIBA job book, and start to translate it into a playbook. Now, RIBA doesn't cover everything of all the disciplines that we need, so we've had to kind of extend it and adapt it. But we're going to go through our kind of design thinking in this session. And very much please, if you've got any questions and ideas, the first kind of thing that we do for industry research projects is this type of session where we sort of tell you what we're going to do. And it's very important that ideally you give us the kind of feedback and ideas that would help us design it and shape it. But I'll leave that to the end, so we can have a conversation at the end. We're then sort of thinking about the different RIBA playbook perspectives, which kind of alluded to, which is, well, there's the intelligent client, and that's kind of, well, they would probably want to use the RIBA playbook to give them overview and control of the entire end-to-end life cycle. And that's obviously in terms of their kind of main drivers. Yes, can I see the end-to-end? Is it all connected? And can I see that we have developed kind of integrated team and ways of working? But also, can I make it scalable and repeatable? I've done one building, can I press a button and there I have the playbook ready for the next project that we're going to do. So it's kind of more repeatable and scalable approach. The kind of contracted team, well, it's slightly different. It's kind of, well, look, we're only kind of commissioned for particular services, deliverables, and only really for specific stages. And it's really, how do we control the kind of what we're contracted to deliver, and to make sure that that kind of meets the standards. There's a few kind of, when we built some of the RIBA playbooks, I'll come on to it, is when you're engaged as the kind of contracted team, what you might find is the client isn't that intelligent and hasn't done some of the things that they need to do in previous stages. So sometimes the playbook itself, quite broad, can help you with that kind of client sort of contracting relationship to say, by the way, we're in stage 2, but you haven't done X, Y, and Z in stage 1 or stage 0, and actually that's going to impact our ability to do it. So there's a way of improving collaboration. And then the kind of stakeholder viewpoint probably isn't the kind of direct prime, but essentially just making sure that we understand how we are going to engage with kind of end users, investors, the kind of regulatory bodies, all the third parties that need to be involved, and all of their kind of deliverables that are required in order to kind of meet compliance and regulation standards. Okay, so they were the kind of 3 perspectives, and then we kind of put it together and say, well, really what we're trying to do with the RIBA playbook is provide alignment and integration of different teams working together to try and achieve the same outcome. So yes, there will be the intelligent client, there will be the various different teams that are contracted to deliver the products and services, and then there'll be the stakeholders that are involved. And it's really just making sure when we construct this playbook that it facilitates and allows what we call kind of collective intelligence, which is everyone's clear on who's doing what, where we are, and what's the kind of next things that we need to do. But making that, rather than a kind of that imagined picture in your head that different teams are trying to work out is trying to act as the kind of visualization of that for cross-functional, multi-diverse teams that are working in construction delivery. Okay. So then we're kind of in week 4 of the project. We have a kind of commitment in Method Grid, which is if we're not working for clients and we're not the kind of professional service team, if we're not fully utilized, what we focus our time on is, well, what's the industry research project? And then we start working that with our kind of, in our non-utilized time. Fortunately, we're pretty much high utilization at the moment, but this is the kind of core focus for all the PS team within Method Grid. So I'm just going to take you through the kind of design guide that kind of is going to introduce you to the structure of the playbook, and then I'll show it to you. So the stages for RIBA playbook are pretty clear. And obviously we just take them out of the plan of work. So that was probably the easiest piece. For those that know RIBA really well, stage 7, like use, we don't think that's going to be a part of the project delivery playbook. What we might explore further down the line is maybe like the buildings manual playbook, like a different playbook that's used for asset management and maintenance in stage 7. But for now, we just wanted to use, can we provide the kind of clear guidance that guides teams through stage 0 to 6 in terms of project delivery? So far, the kind of core themes that we've built for the playbook are down the left-hand side. So I'll go through them sort of one way. There'll be client engagement. So if you're the client team, what are the kind of key client deliverables, like the strategic brief, the project brief? But what are the kind of key decisions as the client team, what you have to approve, what you have to kind of look at and assure that's happened? And it's also just giving clients that kind of, these are the kind of all the key activities and oversight of what you have across the life cycle. Business case, probably not called out much in the actual RIBA, but we find if you're building a business case for a deliverable, you will normally align it with, and we've just used the kind of government framework now, so outline business case, strategic case, outline business case, full business case. But when would we expect that degree of information to be available in the project lifecycle? Then trying to keep it simple for now, which is just saying, well, look, there are the kind of core enabling things within RIBA and what you just need in project delivery, which will be, what are all the deliverables that we need for project management? What are the deliverables for cost management, design management? Sustainability, we've decided to call that out, and we're going to do a talk hopefully with the APM in, I think it's June or July, the conference about how organizations are introducing sustainability as now a core theme in your project delivery approach. I'll go through that. And there's kind of lands and consents. So what do we have to do for land, consent and planning? There's health and safety, and then procurement. And we think those are the core building blocks of the themes that are needed for the RIBA playbook. But again, just making sure that it's really clear for teams to understand, look, now really, can we start to map out what are all the deliverables, activities and controls that are needed as we go through and navigate through the end-to-end life cycle of the project? As obviously, I think we're pretty clear on most of them. Procurement is an interesting one for us because it's whether it's single or double, and it's kind of just working out, okay, well, what kind of flexibility do we need to build into the playbook that allows you to tailor it and right size it, given really the procurement strategy that you want to take for your particular project. And that's where, like I said before, in some cases, we want to build the playbook, but when you tailor it for each project, you're going to need to adjust it and right size it. And that's the kind of core concept of Method Grid is, I'm giving you 80% of what you need, but 20% you need to have a conversation and work out what is the best strategy and approach for the individual project and right size and tailor that playbook. That's, I'd say, if I was let's say I'm the intelligent client, that works for me because I can see the end to end, and now I can start working out who's responsible for what and being very clear and give me the confidence that I'm in control of the end-to-end life cycle. What we've learned though, and it's kind of key lesson learned for when we work with like the consulting professional services firms that support clients, is there's normally a a stage that we introduce, which is kind of initiation and mobilization. And the reason we introduce this is the kind of conversation which we'll come on to, which is, well, actually, for my project, I'm not responsible for the end-to-end. I'm literally commissioned to do project and cost management for stages 2 and 3. So I'm not providing the kind of intelligent client solution, but I do need to be clear on what is the scope that we've signed up to in terms of what we've been commissioned to do, what's my contract state, and I want to be able to evidence that we've met that and communicate that to the client. So the kind of concept of you being able to tailor the playbook is we'll still build RIBA and all the stages so you have access to it. But then when it comes to cloning the playbook, you can then say, well, actually, okay, well, what have we actually been commissioned for? And this might be one example is where we're doing project and cost management throughout all the life cycle. But when it comes to an internal organization, the initiation and mobilization sort of steps help you set up that project internally. So these are all the steps and activities that we need to put in place before we can actually go onto the client site and start working for them. We need to make sure that the contract's signed, we've mobilized all the internal systems, timesheets, all of that can be set up and done. Now, the kind of reality I'd say is also the gift of the playbook is you can then say, well, look, I'm not interested in stage 0 or stage 1, 5 and 6. I'm only responsible for stages 2, 3 and 4. And this is the kind of concept that we get into with this type of working where you're the kind of contracted teams is the end-to-end lifecycle isn't great for me. I only really want to communicate to my team what we're commissioned to do and make sure that everyone's doing that consistently. But I want to be able to rapidly give them a tool that they can say, look, this is what you're commissioned to do. Go and tailor and right size your playbook to represent the scope. And then essentially their playbook only shows them stages 2, 3 and 4, but it's really clear on what they need to do, how we're going to evidence what we deliver to clients, and how we're going to maintain our connection with the client. This is quite also useful, like I said before, is sometimes you can use the playbook with the client to say, by the way, we're commissioned for stage 2, but could you show us where everything in stage 1 is, and do you have it or don't you? No, you haven't done X, Y, and Z. Is that allowing you the opportunity to have a better conversation with the client, say, well, actually, you haven't done X in stage 1, and that's going to hurt us in stage 2 and in stage 3. So can we sort of adjust and change the scope of work so that we can cover those additional deliverables? Cool. Flowing through that. So what I'm going to do now is just give you a kind of introduction to the kind of work in progress that we're building. It's probably going to take us a couple of months to go through and get the playbook engineered ready so that we can say, I want to use method grid for RIBA. Can I have a look at this out of the box because we want to tailor and adjust it? And that's the kind of experience we want to deliver. So I'm just going to share my screen. I'll just share the platform. Cool. Hopefully you can see that. Yep, cool. So what we have is we've defined our playbook. So we've got the stages from left to right. So stage 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5, all the way up to 6. And then I have the individual themes down the left-hand side. So we've got client and stakeholder engagement. We've got business case. We've got the deliverables that we need for project management, the deliverables that we need for cost management, design management, sustainability as its own key theme, lands and consents, health and safety, and procurement and contract management. So that's the kind of the core structure of the playbook. And what we're doing, because I think we must have built these elements, initiation and mobilization, we probably won't put much in there, just apart from explain what that stage is actually used for professional services firms. This will always be generic and bespoke to the kind of internal systems and controls they want to set up before they go on site or engage with client work. So that'll just always be blank, and we can then as part of the implementation, we just basically sit and sort of work out, well, what are the kind of internal controls and things that we need to set up. Then where we think we can get most of this codified is we normally put guidance elements around all of the themes. So we'll explain what is stage 0, what's stage 1, what do we mean by client stakeholder engagement, what do we mean by business case, what do we mean by project management, and just giving people, well, this is what this theme is about, this is what its purpose is. So if we look at stage 0, which we'll follow the kind of, for those that have read it before, we have a white paper that sort of outlines the kind of standards for building world-class playbooks. But what we're trying to do is say, look, this is what it's for. These are the kind of key lessons that we've learned. We use video explainers to help people just understand information in a slightly different way. What's the objectives of each stage? And potentially we'll obviously connect it to other RIBA resources. So we'll add in the kind of plan of work and other resources that might help you understand more about stage 0. I think the RIBA checklists are done by stage. And then where possible, we'll also build kind of e-learning training resources that, okay, I want to know more about RIBA in a lot more detail because I need to understand it. And that's where we're starting to allow teams to access this information. So if you need to know specifically more information, then rather than trawling around trying to find it, what we're trying to do is make it at your fingertips in terms of, okay, I'm now pretty confident in what we need to do for RIBA. What we will do, and naturally, is with Method Grid, we're trying to build it as a white labeled solution. So when we build it for clients, it will be white labeled, it'll be their brand, it'll be their logo. So quickly that you kind of get a RIBA playbook out of the box. But again, it looks and feels like your brand, your logo, not Method Grid. So we're just designing it in a way that we can quickly change logos and brands. So it's a kind of white label solution for clients. So that's kind of the kind of concept that we'll explain, like what's the kind of things that you want to do in stage 1, 2, and 3, and be consistent across that. We're primarily using kind of RIBA language, and we'll try, and so we'll sort of define, you know, what's the strategic brief, what would be the key activities that you need to do in terms of developing the strategic brief. Again, we'll build short video explainers. Again, we'll build this in a way that they can be quickly kind of rebranded, so they, instead of Method Grid logo, it'd be the kind of client logo. And again, as I'm sure if you're getting used to them, it's just we use AI video explainer avatars to sort of talk about the deliverable, why it's important. We'll explain the kind of key objectives. We'll leave tailoring guidance pretty much blank for now. Normally, if I'm doing a really big project and a small project, you can provide guidance on how this deliverable is tailored or right-sized for different sort of levels of risk. There'll be kind of format composition. We'll build and develop some outline templates. Again, we just have an AI model that builds templates for us. Again, we'll keep those fairly generic in terms of branding so that they can be quickly kind of rebranded. Some people we speak to have got them all, and it's not, we don't want your templates, we've got them, we just want to make them accessible. But normally what's, like I said before, in terms of giving people confidence, there's a couple of best practice examples. Here's some hints and tips. Here's the quality criteria. I haven't quite tweaked the model yet to get this right, but this is the kind of outline quality responsibilities about who produces, reviews, and approves it. And here we've done this with a few clients now, and it's a bit clearer that there's kind of key activities that we want the teams to do. And here, this is what we're defining is, well, what are the kind of quality controls, sign-off, and compliance that we want for the actual deliverables. We'll give them as a kind of generic starter point, but naturally, each client will have their kind of own kind of delegated sort of levels of authority, who signs off, who's got authority to sign off what. But at least we've got the kind of placeholder there for us to be able to have that conversation and just adjust that as part of the playbook. There may be existing training resources that clients have, so we can just add those in there. We'll do the kind of input from and input to so that you can workflow it. And we won't fill in expert guidance. We'll leave that blank, but then it just allows you to then say, well, look, who are the people in the organization that are experts in either stage one or this particular deliverable? So that if I've never done this before, and I'll probably add Ed for now, they're the kind of, add Alice. I'll be like, okay, well, look, they're the kind of two people in my firm that if you've never done this before, then you can go and have a conversation. And it's, great, have a chat and say, look, Ed, I've never done this before. Have you got 10 minutes to walk me through exactly how I developed the strategic brief? I'll get rid of those because they'll get notified. Okay. So that's kind of what we're working through is, and being very much deliverable focused. So we're working through each of the themes and just working through the kind of stage 0 client engagement. What we think we'll do is take the RIBA job book and be very clear, look, at this stage, as an intelligent client, you should be able to do X, Y, and Z and have all of these checks and balances ticked off. So use that as a means of controlling that. We may build specific kind of RIBA-based stage gates for the particular process so that they're codified in stage gates rather than that kind of stage 2 client element. We're just working through the kind of design aspects of that at the moment. Other things that we're sort of doing as well. So yeah, we can look at risk registers and obviously we'll build them out. What we've done for a few clients with a few examples is, yes, okay, this is the risk register, but you may then want to connect the playbook to different systems. So you can click and open here. I think it'll won't share on the screen, but you connect to different systems that teams need to fill in, and it might be a different risk management system, or it might be a SharePoint list that you want to connect teams to, or if you want to go with the real basic, we can embed Microsoft Excel so they can interact with the risk register via the playbook as well as an integrated way of working. So you don't have to go and find it and retrieve it. You can actually navigate and use that particular register directly through the playbook. So I'm just going to switch back. And then, yeah, like I said before, sustainability is becoming much more clear. So it's just really helping teams understand, as you go through that theme, what are all of the kind of key deliverables that we need to see at each stage. And again, very simply, and kind of a lot of focus on it at the moment, is what's kind of key lessons learned, what is the sustainability theme, so just making sure that people understand what's awareness, what's kind of key objectives, and we probably think we'll build kind of an outline sort of training course for sustainability. And this is kind of key, a lot of drive, a lot of talk about it this year, is how do you help integrate sustainable ways of working and sustainable thinking into your project methodology. And it's just, we think at the moment, having a clear theme and treating it like your kind of standard theme that you'd expect to see, and being very clear what the deliverables are, what's the information, is predominantly the primary approach that we're going to take using playbooks to do that. So obviously we're still working it through in terms of the design, but this is what we're building out. So obviously you can see the kind of health and safety, your kind of pre-construction information, your F10, the health and safety file. It's just working through kind of all the deliverables. Probably got some work to do with procurement and just working out how best we structure the kind of procurement work scene to kind of work for the end client in terms of how they're going to procure the different services. Again, that one is definitely key and will need to be tailored and right-sized for each individual project. Once you've developed and defined the procurement strategy, you're then in a much better place to kind of shape and adjust the procurement approach that you want to take for the project in terms of design and construction. So I'll just pause there. So hopefully, there's a few questions. Hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of what we're trying to achieve by developing the kind of RIBA playbook. One, that if we're to start adopting and we support RIBA-based projects, that you've got an out-of-the-box playbook that's ready, but you want to tailor and adjust that. First point being for your organization. And then once you have that playbook tailored for your organization, you can then take it and then start to clone it for each individual project, so that all your projects are consistent and they're meeting all the different standards and deliverables that are required. Some of it might be, well, I'm an intelligent client, therefore I'm responsible for all of it. Or it may be, I'm just actually contracted for particular scopes of work, but I just need to ensure that what we deliver meets what I'm contracted to deliver against, and we kind of manage change better. But also just to give the client confidence that, look, this is our expertise, this is our intellectual capital, and this is the way that we've codified ways of working within our organization. I think there's a few consulting firms, if they're on, the playbook can be just a good way, and the majority of firms will normally have, look, here's our project management practice, here's our cost management practice, here's our QS, and it's kind of, when we ask them to try and work out how they deliver services as an integrated solution, sometimes the playbook is a good way of just getting them to understand how we would, if a client did commission us for all of those services, how would it actually work in practice, and be much more clearer on how those cross-functional teams or cross-functional practices actually work together. Cool. Pause there. I'll have a look at the chat, and yeah, please, yeah, if you've got any questions and thoughts, feedback, it'd be really helpful for us, because we'll probably be developing this over the next couple of months, so that once it's available, it'll just be available through the MethodGrid store within the application. So I'll just have a look at the chat. Would you recommend, Yvette, hi Yvette, good to see you. Would you recommend creating a RIBA playbook, then clone for individual contracts? Yeah, I think what we probably do when we look at it is work out how we build specific elements in the playbook that handle the different contracts, and have those as resources. I don't know if anyone from Prevelio is on, but that they've done that with their RIBA playbooks, and it works really well. So we probably look at, well, if you are contracting that way, then you need these resources. So we'll basically try and incorporate that in the playbook so you can use it for the different contract types. Would we not be missing out on benefits realization in stage 7? Yeah, I think stage 7, what we currently, and we're trialing this with a couple of clients at the moment, is the use of playbooks for, well, we need the buildings manual, we need the asset, we need information about the asset, and actually we need to maintain and manage the building, and using different playbooks for asset management and operational teams, like what are all the things that we need to do to kind of actually manage the operational asset. So that's one of the kind of key concepts that we're developing at the moment with a couple of clients, is the actual sort of operations and maintenance playbook for assets, and working through that. Malik, oh yeah, sorry, so thanks for answering the question. I think, Malik, I think in terms of the benefits, like realization, it's a long play. I think normally what we find is we're commissioned to do 1 and 6, and then normally, yeah, like I said, 7, the kind of asset optimization and management is probably a separate playbook that's connected at the moment. Can the information be exported or directly plugged into reporting software, for example, Power BI? Yeah. More recently, we've made developments to the kind of MethodGrid API, so you can export all of the data in terms of tasks, tracking, that can all be exported out into Power BI, and you can build your own dashboards within that platform. I think we are quite close to, and I think it's probably in test, I think, is the direct Power BI connector, so that you can just do it by the store, but clients have a direct API that just pulls all of the data out daily, and then they just ingest that and plug it into like Fabric or different warehouses that they're using for reporting. Any other questions or thoughts? Quick look, chat. Great structure. Oh, so Michael, if all documents artifacts are being stored in known places, playbooks give good practice standards. Yeah, so what we find when we use playbooks and cloning them and using them for direct projects, sometimes when they use kind of some tasks will be flagged and say, look, you need to upload evidence that that task has been done. But in that world, what it tends to be is the playbook is connected to SharePoint, OneDrive, or the individual like ProjectWise or asset management or sort of design management system that's holding the kind of drawings. And we do that just by connecting links to different documents so that teams, when they look at the playbook, it might be that I don't have to trawl through SharePoint. I can literally click on the link and it'll open up the document that's relevant for that particular project. Christopher, RIBA plan of work assumes a new or refurbished building is the chosen business case option. It's not so great around upfront activities needed for stage 0. Have you been looking? It's come up. Obviously, we're working through the kind of RIBA job book to kind of help us with the different scenarios and different options. I think priority wise, I think we're probably just going to try and keep it to kind of one solid use case. We may then iterate it and add additional deliverables and use labels to allow you to say, well, if I'm doing this type of project, I need to see all of the additional deliverables, but probably not for the kind of MVP for the kind of first iteration of the RIBA playbook. Is an automatic QA function in place? There's not an automatic QA function yet. What we will do is obviously when there's clear deliverables and clear sign-offs required, we'll make sure that they're captured in the like checklists and the process and have to have evidence uploaded so that when teams try and tick that activity off, they are prompted to upload the evidence so that if you were to come and do the kind of assurance and review, all of that information is accessible on the playbook rather than you trawling through and trying to find the right source of information where it is. So that's the kind of first stage is to just make it more transparent for teams where the latest assets and information is. There's obviously we've talked about it on previous kind of roadmap items, is the kind of use of AI and sort of AI automation to then start to look at the deliverable against the quality criteria and do that assessment. That's more longer term in our kind of product roadmap. Vet, just see your typing. In terms of well, let's type in. In terms of keeping you updated, we'll keep working on it and we'll give you kind of key updates. Probably if you don't follow us, please follow us on LinkedIn. We'll just give you regular updates in terms of when it's going to be available and when it'll be released. If you move a file that's embedded, I assume that it breaks the link with mg.control required in SharePoint. I think we've protected this. I think when we connect links to SharePoint, it's just an established connector to that file within SharePoint. Obviously, if you create a new document, that's a new asset. But I think if you move that around, we'll test it. But if you move it around, the link should be still remains the same for that document. Cool. Well, listen. Obviously, there's a lot of information for you to take in, but just want to say, thanks for attending, gives you feedback. In terms of next steps for us, obviously, there's a few resources, and we'll send out this pack to all kind of people that have attended. There's a few resources for you. Obviously, if you're interested in kind of playbooks, network rails, Pace Digital is public read only, so you can access that. I think Tom will put the link in for you with our case study. And if you've not read it and want to see it, there's the kind of playbook white paper as well, which just talks to you about how you actually translate your project delivery approach into a playbook and all the thinking that you have to do around it. And then, like I said, next month we'll release the kind of process to Playbook white paper, which goes much more deeper into kind of why Playbooks came about and how they address some of the kind of challenges that you face in terms of the shelfware trap and kind of organizational drift. Cool. So massive thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. And hope to see you next month. Really, thanks for your time. Take care.